This is a chance to connect on a human level with our speakers, with each other, and with the broader possibilities of what a career in the environmental field looks like. So thank you for showing up and for being curious, for investing in your future, and for being part of this community of changemakers. I will now be passing the mic to Audi, and he will be doing the acknowledgement of country. So please welcome Audi.
Hi everyone, my name is Audi. I'm the current president of the EM Club, which is a club for students that wants to learn and share resources regarding the environmental management field. And I would like to acknowledge the Bijikal people as the traditional custodian and owners of this land in which we meet today, and extend the respect to the elders past, present, and emerging. For us, environmental management students and people who work in this field, it is important for us to learn the traditional ecological knowledge, which they, the indigenous people, are coming up with. So it's amazing for us to be in this country and learning from them. And I would like to welcome you, the students, in this event. I hope that it's going to be useful. I will also want to welcome Tema Milstein, our professor, and the convener of the Environmental Management Club, and also our three amazing speakers. The first one will be Taylor Coyne, Mitchel Parker, and also Anil, who is hopefully going to join us later. And yeah, it's really hard to pick from our alumni who is going to come to the speech, to the panel event, because all of them are amazing. So yeah, we just have a hard time to do that. We choose them based on three criteria. The first one will be relevancy regarding their experience. And then the second will be their novelty. So we try to connect with alumni that are, that is like, we don't have the chance to speak to them or like learn from them without like special event like this now. And of course, like availability, which of course, some of them are like busy, so we cannot really connect with them or like invite them to come here. So we have to extend our thankfulness, our gratefulness for them to be able, because they are willing to spend their time to share their experiences. Of course, I'm not going to waste any more time, so I'm just going to pass the mic back to Fawzia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Audi. I will now be passing the mic to our esteemed guest, the one who has shaped our academic journeys at UNSW as the course convener of the Master of Environmental Management program, co-founder of Daily Delight Disrupt, and professor of Environment and Society at UNSW. She is someone who we all know and love. Please welcome Dr. Tema Milstein for the opening speech.
Hi, everyone. I would ask you all to move forward, but I feel like it's going to take forever for everyone to get around these tables. But this is a comfortable community. So if you are not already in the Masters of Environmental Management, who here, I know who I recognize, but who is in the Masters of Environmental Management or certificate or diploma? Raise your hand if you're in the Masters and in the postgrad. Okay, great. And if you're in undergrad in environmental management? And if you're not in environmental management, which is the folks I don't recognize, we're really happy you're here. So this is all about environmental change making. It's all about being a leader in environment and society. It's all about being a visionary, not a functionary. This is really key to who we need working in the world now, people who are willing to think differently and think expansively. And so it's really exciting to think about what you can do, what you're already bringing, and maybe some of the superpowers you know you have. Maybe you don't know you have these yet, but you're going to discover them. So, so that's where we're starting from. I'm just going to talk for a few minutes, and I'm going to pass it over to the folks who are representing future careers. And I'm going to have to leave a little early, so sorry about that. So I'm just going to, if you have questions for me, I could take them now, but I'm just going to say a few things. So one, I want to thank the MEM Club, which is amazing. You guys are doing amazing things. I cannot wait to hear about your getaway, your permaculture in the mountains experience. You guys are just blowing me away. So thank you for being so awesome and for like just bringing all of that to everybody. I know it's a lot of work, and I hope everyone knows to appreciate it. And like this event tonight, this is all you're doing this in your spare time, like you have any. But one thing I do want to say is anyone who is looking at environmental work right now is coming from a place of passion and heart. And that's so important, right? And that means that you already have taken the right first step. Because if you're not starting from there, you're going to take decades to realize that that's what you should have done from the beginning. So you mentioned that kind of you're at a crucial time, right? All the pressure that you get from right, exactly, 15 onward. I'm definitely not going to say that. What I'm going to say is you've already taken the right step. So you are doing work to bring a restorative future for all of us that we're all going to share. You know that you want to do that work. And so what matters is that you keep that front and center for every step you take from here on out. And that doesn't mean that there are bad steps to take. It means that if you're prioritizing that, you're making the choices that are going to be this path, right? Each step, maybe nowhere that you step next is going to be where you end up. That's also really important, right? So taking that step, coming from your passion, coming from your heart, coming from the superpowers you may or may not know are there inside of you, and just finding what draws you. This is really deeply important. Don't be too technical about this. Don't be too, what's going to give me the biggest salary. If you follow that passion in yourself, all of that will align, period. That is my experience personally, and that's the experience that I've seen all around me. So taking that step, there's a saying of you don't realize that you're walking a straight line until you're at the end of your path. So it may seem very meandering. It may seem that you're going in all different directions towards all different interests. Don't worry about that, right? All of those interests become part of your toolbox. They become part of what you're offering the world. They become part of, I keep saying it, but your superpowers. And just follow that instinct, follow your gut instinct on that. The other thing I want to say is in terms of jobs and environment and society, and I don't really like the word jobs, I like the word vocation, like that which we're called to do. Those are infinite, and I cannot overstate that. We are at a point where we are in the great turning. We are in the great power down. We are in the great post-growth moment. I know it doesn't look like it yet, mostly, right? It looks like there's some dumpster fires happening, especially from the country I come from originally, but things are changing, and you guys are all part of that change. We all are. So don't feel like you as a younger generation are carrying it on your shoulders. Everyone is. Not everyone. All the people who are visionaries and change makers right now. So we are in the midst of this change. All of the vocations that are coming, most of them are not visible yet, and you are going to invent a bunch of them. So that's the other thing, is don't try to always slot yourself into that which already exists, right? We are in an emergent moment, unlike any other in recent history. Emergent in that, in terms of any responsible government, any responsible institution, any responsible business, restoration, repair, sustainability is coming to the forefront of all of those spaces. So what you offer there is going to be carried forward. But today, we're going to hear hopefully from 3 people, the 2 lovely folks here who are already, all of whom are very recent to not so recent graduates of the Masters of Environmental Management. The 2 folks to my left, I know that they're going to get introductions, but the one thing I just wanted to say is when I walked into my very first classroom, you 2 were there right in the front here at UNSW, and I saw your smiling faces and I saw the light coming out of both of you, and I knew good things were coming. So that's what it's all about. Keep your light shining. Do not put that light under a rock. Do not put it in a cubicle unless that cubicle brings you joy, so you can bring joy to the whole planet. Let me see. I had a few notes. A couple things. Take time to soul search. take time, whatever that looks like to you. Does that mean a meditation retreat? Does it mean a vision quest? Does it mean going traveling for a while? But take time to soul search and get perspective on who you are and what you care about. That is deeply important, and most people will never tell you to do that. But most people say go straight through school and go straight into a job. You have your whole life to do that. But if you take that time to really reflect on who you are and what you care about, that means that you're going to be taking those steps thoughtfully and consciously, and that's going to be something that matters to you for the rest of your life and the people around you. And then besides talking to these lovely folks today, talk to lots of other folks. Keep talking. Ask people out for coffee. You know, don't be shy. People love to mentor. People love to talk about what they do. Don't feel like you're imposing. I can't tell you how rarely I'm asked to do this. And I mean, people who are senior in their positions, people who know quite a bit about these different realms, they are thirsty to, I hate that that word has been co-opted in a bad way. So sorry. They are hungry to share that, you know, not to lecture you, but to like share their ins about how you can move forward in their lessons. So do reach out to people. And then the final thing I wanted to say is one thing that we talk about in our Frameworks of Environmental Leadership course, the first course in the MEM, when we finish that term, is ikigai. So if you've never come across the Japanese term, ikigai, I-K-I-G-A-I, look it up, please. This is something that you can help you kind of soul search and move forward. But it's that crossover of, I might mess it up because it's not right in front of me, but it's that crossover of kind of the purpose that you bring, the what the world needs, a way that you can support yourself. There's one other part that's really important I'm forgetting right now, but it's a wonderful way. It's also beautifully, there's a beautiful graphic that can really help you kind of put it up on your wall, you know, look at it, think about it, and focus on that. Don't feel pressure to jump into a job. You know, I know we all have to pay to live, but do what makes you happy. And again, if you're doing what brings you joy, you'll bring joy to everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Tema Milstein, for that lovely opening speech. I think we all gained some inspiration from that. So we will jump into the icebreaker, just to get to know each other a bit better, just to get you guys moving and talking. So I want you guys to really reflect on where you are from ecologically. Think about the landscape that you grew up in, look past or beyond buildings and focus on the natural environment. What did you have access to? A forest, a beach or mountain, a park or riverbank or like a backyard? And what was your climate and how did that affect you? So don't just think about the climate, but how was that affecting you day to day? Where were the nearest lakes, waterfalls or protected areas, and what animals or plants were present in your area? And what did it teach you and how did it inspire you and how did you activate your 5 senses? So these are just a few questions to get you guys thinking. And what you can do is turn to the person on your left and discuss it with them, or you guys can discuss in groups of 3 or groups of 4, whatever you're comfortable with. So just take a few seconds to think about it and discuss. Yeah.
旅をひるまたが飛んで曲がりに
You don't like it so small? I mean like so soft?
歩こう歩こう私は元気歩くの大好きどんどん行こういつでも歩きも出ておいで林よ林の奥まで友達が 嬉しいな友達たくさん嬉しいな色の花びら散らして振り向けばまばゆい高原おまから光が立てば体と途中に浮かぶの優しさは見えない翼で遠くからあなたが呼んでる愛し合う人は誰でも飛び方を知ってるものよ
Hello, everyone. We're going to wrap up the icebreaker session, but we would love to hear from one of you. Would anyone like to share what they discussed or what they learned from the other person? Yeah, so sorry. We do have to speed things up right now, but would anyone like to share? Or should I pass the mic around to someone? Yeah, Edison, all right. Oh, that's so cool. Wow, that's amazing. Do you guys want to share something about where you grew up?
Please remember, I was in TST. Why would you? No, I live in. All right. Where I was specifically was very, very urban because I was right in the city center. So like, the nearest park was Kowloon Park, which is not like a very naturey park. It's next to the ocean though, so that was kind of nice. That was a harbor, so yeah, fragrant harbor they call it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
As the
Um,
name suggests, Hong Kong.
Very fragrant.
Yeah. Oh, because Hong Kong in Cantonese means fragrant harbor, but the harbor is not actually that fragrant. It's quite the opposite.
It has an aroma.
Yeah.
Not a pleasant one.
Yeah, an acquired one. And so I'm quite different from where you live in. I live further south. Yeah. I live near Ocean Park, so it's it's surrounded by mountains, and I think it's also like the suburb next to mine is I think the first fish village in Hong Kong, and so hmm? So it's like the first village that does fisheries in Hong Kong. I think so. Yeah, it's because it's pretty old, but yeah. So I have a lot of opportunities in going to nature because there's a track that like when you go to Google and type Hong Kong scenery, you would always have that photo of like the city from up a mountain, right? And I always go to that track when I was little and during COVID because it's fun because it's like really quiet. And yeah, so I guess I have more opportunities in um like connecting to nature from where I stayed, and yeah, it's quite different.
To go on like a hike or something.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, thank you guys so much for sharing that. I think I learned something new about Hong Kong, which I didn't know it meant fragrant harbor, which is really cool. And it's sad that it doesn't live up to that, but but it's interesting because like a city like Hong Kong, it's quite small. So I think you kind of know everything and you've kind of been around a lot, like been to a lot of places. So that's interesting. So I think we'll wrap this up. So we will move on to our guest talk right now. So I just want to remind you guys about the house rules. Please remain silent when another person is talking or presenting, and please note down your questions until the end of the speech or at the Q&A session at the end of the event. All right, so our first panelist for today. Thank you so much, thank you so much, Tema. Thank you. Our first panelist for today is a PhD candidate with the Environment and Society group at UNSW Sydney. He critically examines the history, design, and governance of Sydney's urban stormwater infrastructure. He also works as a lecturer at UNSW and is part of the Yerrabingin's Connection with Country team, serving as a project leader. Please give a warm welcome to Taylor Coyne.
For having me here. Those are not my slides. No, that's not my slides. That's all right. Perfect.
Is the mic on?
Yeah, I think it's on. Yeah. Cool. Perfect. Awesome. Cool. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here. I appreciate you taking the time out on your Monday night to hear from us. So yeah, my name is Taylor Coyne. I'm with the Environment and Society group. I'm going to go through a kind of a bit of a bio to start with, and then move through towards thinking about what I guess a career in research in this space might look like as well, and some kind of tips for how to get there. Before we begin though, obviously acknowledging country here on beautiful Bidjigal country. These images that I'm showing are, I guess, speak to my research in some way. So I research swamps, and swamps as bitter water country are incredibly important to Bidjigal community, and they always have and they always will be special places. So my journey started in a really unconventional place, and I guess it speaks to what Tema was talking about in terms of not really realizing the kind of the path behind me until I am where I am now. And it started all the way back when I did a Bachelor of Visual Arts, actually, in painting at Sydney College of the Arts. And I had a really lovely time there, and it kind of expanded my mind, got me to start thinking creatively, thinking laterally about how to view the world, starting to think critically about the world. But I was really young when I started that off. I was 17 when I started that degree, which was ridiculous. Like 17-year-olds should not be at university in my mind. In any case, there I was. And I finished that, and then I didn't really know what to do with my life. So I went traveling for a bit. And then I came back and I started a Bachelor of Science and Arts at UNSW here, all the way back in 2014, that was. And I majored in geography and Indigenous studies and development studies throughout all of those three. So that was kind of the beauty of UNSW's double degrees, that I could kind of create this composition of beautiful majors and minors. I got really into, in the final year of my undergrad, I did a field school trip to Uganda, which was, yeah, a pretty monumentally life-changing experience, spending 4 weeks doing field work in Uganda, which was really beautiful and taught me a lot of really great skills in terms of how to do research in the field as well. And that then kind of led on to me doing my honours research year after that, which I went back to Uganda and spent a few more months over there doing research on small-scale aquaculture ventures in post-conflict northern Uganda. So doing interviews with people who'd lived through the conflict there, and who were using aquaculture or encouraged to do aquaculture as a sustainable livelihoods method. Again, that kind of like really pushed me into this research space. But I was really kind of like, okay, that's great, but I want a job. And so then I was like, you know what, I'm going to go and do a master's. And so I started off my master's in environmental management here. There was a bit of, I guess, I don't know, cleverness in how I did it. So because I had had my honours year, I was able to get a year's worth of credits taken off the 2-year master's. So I did the 2-year master's in 1 year because I had credits given to that for the honours research year. So I was kind of a bit smart about how I had done that. So essentially was able to get honours and a master's in 2 years, which then led me, subsequently to have a very kind of, I guess, attractive research profile, because I had research done for my honours and was able to publish from that, and research done from the masters, which I was able to publish from that as well. As I was doing the masters as well, I was really encouraged and supported here at UNSW in the Environment and Society group to do a lot of academic tutoring. So the tutors in your undergrad course, for example, a range of different courses that I was tutor for, and then also coming in to do random guest lectures, and then kind of being able to prove myself to the course conveners there. They were able to then say, okay, he can do it, let's give him the courses. So then I was able to actually convene and lecture a few courses as well whilst doing my master's, and also doing my PhD, which I started immediately after that. So during my master's, I was doing research credits as well. So to add even more complexity to my master's composition, half of my master's credits units were a research project. So there is an option when you do your Masters of Environmental Management. You can do, I think it's either 6, 12 or 18 units of credit as a research project, where you either find a research topic that excites you, you have conversations with the profs who are, giving lectures, and then you're able to get a research project out of that as well. So that's a really great kind of way to, again, have more research embedded into your profile, build those relationships, and also, potentially get published out of that research, which is what ended up happening with me from that as well. And that paper kind of led me, and that research led me into my PhD topic more than anything else as well, which the project is called Swamp City, which I'll get into in a little bit. As I've been doing my candidature of my PhD, I've also guest lectured it to UTS and also into NIDA as well, which is kind of a bit of a weird thing, I know. But they found my research profile and they wanted to, so a lot of the students there, so NIDA isn't just for acting students, it's also for production design or set design students. And when you think about what set design is, you're creating these mini environments. And the course that I kind of teach into that is called Story and Place. It's how do we convey what this place's story is to an audience in a meaningful way. So we get the students out into the city and go walking around so they can get inspiration from that as well. And then finally, in May last year, I started working at an Indigenous-owned design studio called Yerrabingin. It means we walk together. So we're a collection of non-Indigenous and Indigenous designers, researchers, thinkers who come together and help facilitate the connecting with country process, which I'm not going to talk too much about today. I'm going to focus more on the research side of my career. But if you do have questions about connecting with country and designing with country and what that means, I'm more than happy to field those questions later as well. So the research that I do now focuses on a few questions. How and why did Sydney's stormwater infrastructures come to be the way they are today? Is the broader question, and that entangles a very large historical geography, environmental history focus, as you can imagine. The other subsequent questions, whose stories, knowledges, and experiences are considered and whose are not in the way water is known, placed, and listened to, or planned, designed, and governed, if you want to think of it like that. And that's really kind of the nitty-gritty in terms of why am I doing this? A lot of people will say, that's what I'm researching. They go, that's really great, but why do we need to know about the history of drains? And then I kind of say like, well, it's actually really important because we need to know how they came to be the way they are. So then we can actually start unpacking who's included in the conversations about how these spaces are planned and designed and governed as well. So for me, Sydney has to be really specific for a number of different reasons. One, I started my PhD in June 2020, which was a very strange time for everyone in the world. And also in Sydney, we had restrictions about where we could go, obviously. And so my 5K bubble essentially meant that I was living in Randwick. And so I had a very kind of eastern view of Sydney. So everything in my PhD topic, which emerged as a result of that, focuses mainly on this part of Sydney, which I just massively want to acknowledge that this is not everyone's version of Sydney. But for my research purposes, I don't really look at anything or any case studies north of the harbour, south of the bay, or west of Cook's River, more or less. So the research that I do, as I've mentioned, is on stormwater infrastructure, and I do a lot of field work as methodology. I do a lot of walking as methodology. And these are some of the places that I kind of walk and some of the kind of These are, I guess, my version of Sydney as well. And as I'm walking through these spaces, I'm asking a range of questions. First and foremost, what are these? Well, these are stormwater infrastructure assets, drains mostly. Why do they all look the same? More or less, there is a certain sameness to the way these all look. Who built these as well? Starting to kind of answer the same questions in terms of, well, who built these means that they look the same. And we can kind of very easily answer that question by saying it's British civil, hydrological and engineers who were involved in that. Why were these built? In order to facilitate the control and movement of water in a quote unquote efficient way. What was here before? Most of these drains were on old creeks or swamps. And so they kind of just basically changed the natural creek into these drains. What knowledge has informed the creations of these infrastructures? That kind of also answers that question of who built these. This is British civil engineering is really the knowledges that inform the creation of this as well. And also later on in the 20th century, American engineering as well. What knowledges of these environments were transformed as a result of their creation? By that I mean, obviously, Indigenous knowledges of these environments have been drastically transformed as a result of the creation of these infrastructures. How are these history remembered? This is a big thing for me more recently in terms of visual communication, in terms of public history telling. How are we telling the stories of this transformation of this place? And I assure you, if you come across many of these different types of infrastructures, there is no visual communication about the fact that these drains were ecologies and still are ecologies, really. Whose experiences are entangled with these environments and how might their stories be cared for better? So essentially, I guess what you can think of is I start with a really simple question and fundamentally by the time I get to the end, I have a very, very complex question. And that's really what I've been working through in the thesis. Broadly, geography, history, and design is really what you can just like, if you want to think about who is this guy and what does he do, this is really what I look at in this world. Here I am doing what I'm doing now. As part of doing this research, I talk a lot at different conferences, lectures, and also, I guess, yeah, different talks. So this was me talking last year at the State Library, which was a really wonderful experience to be a part of there as well. I've also, as I've mentioned, published a lot of stuff out of here. So that one on the far left, which is probably the most cited one they've had, that is a result of the master's research that I did. So those units of credit that I did for my master's research was focused on a particular rain garden in southern Sydney near the Georges River. And we worked on this paper and that's, you know, it's gone kind of, in my opinion, kind of wild in a weird way. But there's a range of other papers as well that I have either solo authored or co-authored into as well. Sorry, it's just loading. What I wanted to talk through in the remaining part of tonight from me is broken into a few different sections here. Starting off with nurturing your curiosity, which I think Tema kind of already started to speak to. Essentially, how then, if you want to think of a career in research, how do you even find a topic? What does that even mean? How do you find a supervisor and how do you manage and cope with those relationships with the supervisors? How do you actually do it in terms of the methods that you're using? And then a really big one, which Tema also kind of touched on, is how do you make life work in this sense here of both navigating institutions and also fundamentally making money? Because we do all hear the kind of that, I don't know, the kind of the joke of the poor PhD grad student. Yes, it's true, but there's other ways that you can also kind of sustain yourself as you're moving through that as well. And then finishing with kind of planning for the next steps. So to start with, nurturing your curiosity, as Tema was saying, most of you are here because you have some kind of passion for the environment, passion for people, passion for culture, passion for nature, whatever you want to call it. There is something in you that is kind of bubbling away in some sense. That notion of kind of, there's always a question that you have that is, I imagine most people have a question that kind of bugs them, that like, I want to know more about this, or I've read everything I can, or ChatGPT is giving me these responses, but it's not really giving me enough there. You know, there's always something more there. And I think that kind of, that curiosity to want to know more is really, I think, the starting point, that kind of the spark of starting off a career in research. That curiosity is really important. And that's something that I try and teach all my undergrad students, is to constantly remain curious and never take anything for face value. Letting your questions remain open, as I said, you know, as I was working through those infrastructures, questions. It's kind of really broad to start with, and it's through a process, an iterative process of moving through that we kind of move through these complex questions to get to where we end up with as well. And also don't just trace trendy topics, whatever it might be, you know, AI and the environment or whatever it is, it's a really hot topic. It's great. People will say, oh, you're so smart for choosing a really like trendy topic right now. But if you're not passionate about it, then it's going to fall flat, which I guess then feeds into the second point that I wanted to make, which is about finding that topic. I had notebooks and mind maps online, bookmarks and tabs, all of these different things that I was like, I wonder what people in this part of the world do with this thing, or how has this changed through time, whatever it might be. There was all of these different examples that I had, and I had big ambitions of doing these big kind of comparative studies where I was like, okay, so British civil engineering happened in Sydney in this way, but how did it happen in New Zealand? And how did it happen in South Africa? And I wanted to do all of these big kind of global journeys and stuff. And they're still sitting there in my notebooks. But for a range of different kind of pragmatic reasons, I've had to tailor them down to where I am now. I think a big one here, as I was kind of saying, is what is not being said here. And I guess in a more practical sense, in terms of choosing a research topic, there's two kind of ways you can go about it. One is a supervisor-led research project where a supervisor will have an Australian Research Council, an ARC grant, and embedded within that will be a postdoc or a PhD role in there in some sense. Then you'll apply for that as you would apply for a job, and you'll have a conversation, you'll send an application off, and you'll kind of will get that PhD role. Or you'll do what I did, which was have conversations with supervisors about your own passions, and then try and start to create a project with them in a more meaningful way. I would obviously suggest the second one if you can and have the capacity to do that, which feeds into my third point on supervisor relationships. Trying to be really clear about your working style is really important. And I think like this actually is probably the most important thing about doing research, is having that strong relationship with a supervisor, someone who you gel with, someone who vibes with you, someone who understands your working style, someone who understands how you want to be spoken to and how you want to be checked in on when things are not going well and when things are going well as well. When you don't have that relationship, everything starts to crumble. So, you know, maybe it's Tema, you have a really great vibe with them and you want to do research with them. Go and have a chat with them after class. Send them that email, arrange to have a coffee with them. Do you have any research projects going? No, that's fine. I have this topic that I'm really interested about. How can we make this work? Those are really significant things to start off with. In terms of methods, as I said, I do a lot of very kind of, I guess, potentially unconventional research methods in terms of walking as a method. So in these walking kind of field walks that I do, I document everything either written, or I do sound recordings, or I also do photography as a way to kind of document my experience and how these spaces affectively change me as a kind of a subjective individual. And I kind of am very critical of that autoethnographical process. But nevertheless, it's been really fruitful and generative here as well. And that's means working across different disciplines. You know, here I am as a human geographer using photography as a research method. So there's all of these different kind of disciplinary barriers that, you know, you can break down and you don't have to be kind of constrained by them. The fifth point here about making life work is broken into, I guess, a few different points, but the main one is your life will change as you do a PhD. I had a relationship and then I didn't have a relationship. I lived in Sydney and then I lived in Scotland and then I lived in Sydney again. I started off in COVID and then I moved home. I had to go and stay with my mum because she was sick. Like, life happens and you just have to kind of move with that as best as you can. And I guess that speaks to the third point about having supervisors who actually understand what it means to live a life today in 2025 as well. Also making space for yourself, you know, do that half marathon, make sure you sign up for that, like whatever it is that makes you happy, make sure that you do that as well. And I'm really, I guess, quite rigid about maintaining a schedule in terms of treating the PhD as a job. A 9-to-5 job is like, I have my weekends, that's that. I guess the one part here is like the bureaucracy of navigating UNSW as an institution can be intimidating, but if you have that good relationship with your supervisor or also other people who have had experience of doing a PhD. So I got experience from a PhD who was finishing up when I was applying for my PhD, and she helped me apply. And I subsequently have done that with someone else as well. So we have this kind of mentorship relationship that will help you navigate these institutions together. This kind of point here is really boring, but it's important as well, is it can be intimidating. You get a PhD stipend. It's barely enough to survive off in Sydney in 2025. So I've had to kind of supplement that or complement it with teaching and RA jobs. Also subsequently have, dropped to part-time, and I'm now working for this private company as well to try and actually pay rent and live a life as well. But you can kind of comprise your PhD candidature in the way that works for you, as long as you have those good relationships with the supervisor. And finally, thinking about what next, putting yourself out there, going to those conferences, writing those papers, sending those emails, having those conversations about what next in terms of postdocs and everything, really, really important to think about and set yourself up for as well. And just keep a record of everything in terms of job ads, relationships, everything. It's a really, really important thing to document those things as well. Awesome. There's a lot of content in there. If you have anything you wanted to chat to, please just keep that in mind as we move to Q&A, I guess, as well. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Taylor. Are you open to any questions at this point? Yeah.
Happy to.
Yeah. Do we have any questions right now? Or if you don't, then we can move it to the end of the event. That's also fine.
I know there's a lot of
yeah. Yeah, no, thank you so much. Yeah, I think that was a great presentation. We really loved it. All right, so we are going to move on to the second panelist for today. Our second panelist is Mitchel Parker. He is a sustainability officer at the Sutherland Shire County with a focus on education and outreach, urban biodiversity and design, nature connection, climate change adaptation and mitigation, renewable energy, and sustainable transport. He has led community-based sustainability programs such as Canopy Fest, Community Microforest and Youth Climate and Biodiversity Forum. Please give a warm welcome to Mitchel Parker.
Thank you. Oh, how do I attach that? I feel like Britney Spears right now. Yeah. Okay, I hope that stays. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. Apologies if any of you were in the class I spoke at earlier in the year, because this is going to be a little bit similar content, but I'll try and give it a bit of a different spin. Yeah, my name's Mitch, and I am working as a sustainability officer at Sutherland Shire Council. That is on Darawal country. I currently live on Gadigal country in the inner west of Sydney, and I grew up in Darug country in northwest Sydney. So Kurrajong, if any of you know it. Like a lot of the conversations we had in the ice breaking session, I was pretty lucky to grow up around a lot of nature. Yeah, out in northwest Sydney. So that photo there of the bowerbird's nest, that's actually at my parents' house that I grew up in, that they still live in. So I was always out on our bit of land, planting trees, looking at things, and yeah, really having the opportunity to experience nature and the environment, and therefore, yeah, build that connection to it and that interest. As I grew up, that continued. I got into bonsai, which is a great way of connecting with nature when you live in an apartment, as a lot of us do now. But I still like to go out camping and hiking. There's a photo up there from a trip I took over New Year's Eve into the Victorian Alps to Mount Bogong to see the moths that come out there. That was a pretty awesome time. But that's a bit of background about me. I always had this interest in the environment and the natural world, but at the end of high school, I was kind of deciding, what do I want to do with my life forever? And I was caught between studying something in environment or doing German. And I came to UNSW as an undergrad and studied German studies and European studies. After that, I spent about 10 years, 8 years living and working in Sydney or overseas. So spent about 4 years in Germany doing different jobs, in Vancouver, in Montreal, and in Amsterdam as well. I took a year to connect with my cultural heritage, my Dutch side of my family, and do those sorts of things. But basically, after having all those wonderful experiences, meeting all those great people, I got back to Sydney and I was like, I got to make money and I got to have a career now. I can't just run off overseas and do these fun things anymore. So yeah, I landed on coming back to UNSW, and I guess I was 32 when I made that decision, which is a bit of a tough thing, you know. You're an adult by that stage. It's not like your undergrad where you live at home with mum and dad if you're lucky. So I was kind of making the decision to work full-time and study full-time, which I do not recommend to anyone, but sometimes it is a must, especially as Taylor said, in 2025, it is not cheap to be a student of any sort. So that brought me to the MEM program. And sorry, Taylor, I hope you approve of that photo. I didn't ask prior. These are some of the few photos I have of studying here at UNSW that second time. I think that was our last day of classes together. But I, got to use the graduation photo and have a nice little snapshot of one of the projects that I actually photographed at the time. Hot tip, photograph your work, whatever you do while you're studying. You will be asked to do talks like this in the future and you'll need a lot of good photos. So always take photos of your projects. That was one project that we did as a part of ecocultural communication, which was centered on bees and informing the public about what was happening and boosting urban biodiversity. That's actually out the back laneway of Wynyard Station, where just put up this little kind of pop-up art installation right before morning peak hour. So people exiting the station would kind of come out and be like, instead of this normal gray wall, there's actually a bit of art going on, flowers, and each of those flowers were for people to take away, and had a little note of information sheet about bees and what was going on. But as Taylor mentioned, this is 2020 where I was studying, well, both were studying here at UNSW. And that was a very tricky time. I think we were 4 weeks into the first trimester of my second year of the MEM when COVID broke out and everything changed. And that was a really interesting time for me. The job I was working was in tourism, so I pretty much lost my job like that. Overnight, I was like, oh God, I don't have an income at all. This is crazy. Luckily, I ended up getting on government support for the next couple of months, while like a lot of people did at that time. And it was a bit of a blessing in disguise for me, because rather than having to split my energy between going to an office job Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, coming to lectures in the evening, and doing all those readings that Tamer and John would make us do, which are great readings, and I appreciate that they did that. But yeah, it was a lot of time to do all of that stuff on the weekend as well while working full time. I realized very quickly that I was actually going through a 10-week cycle of burnout. So I'll echo what Taylor said, always find time for yourself, always find time to have a break, do something that you're, aside from your studies that you're interested in. It will sustain you through your studies and through your careers going forward. But anyway, got to the end of the MEM and I was like, well, what am I going to do now? It was kind of tricky looking for work at that time. But fortunately, I had a friend, Gio, who was working for a bush regeneration company called Tooladjua. And I used him as a reference, lucky. It's always good having connections. And I ended up working in bush regeneration for 7 months. That was, at the time, very beneficial to me for a lot of reasons. It gave me practical experience on environmental restoration projects. I learned how to use machinery. I learned how to carry out tree planting projects to remove invasive species. I learned plant ID. What were the species that were native? What was invasive? I was out there doing it. What was really handy as well was who I worked with, because I'd categorize people who work in bush regeneration in a couple of different categories. There are people like me who might have been studying at university or TAFE and have that bit of academic background and want that boots on the ground experience in these sorts of projects. Then you also have people who, I'll be frank, love the outdoors and probably take a lot of mushrooms half the time. So they're really out there for the nature-based reasons, and they're good fun people. But then you also have a lot of people who are working in that sort of job because it's physical and maybe they don't have access to other types of employment. One of my other colleagues was a 65-year-old Iraqi man who was a refugee in Australia. So because of his age and the language barriers he had being here in Australia, he was very limited to the work he could do in terms of the culture he was finding himself in. He actually was a ship engineer and was incredibly skilled, but because of language, he was out there doing that sort of job. So it was really interesting in that I worked with all sorts of different people in this work, and we all had our different skills, different motivations for being there, but we were all working towards that same goal of participating in this ecological restoration project. So that was really cool. It was also lucky at the time that, once again, this is COVID, this is Sydney with lockdowns happening. I was actually able to leave the house because a lot of the work, the sites that I worked on were kind of utility sites, they were critical infrastructure. So I was able to be outdoors, keeping my mind busy, keeping my body busy, that sort of thing, during a time that was pretty tough for a lot of people. So in retrospect, I appreciated that a lot. However, after about 7 months of that, where COVID started to slowly go away, and I got tired of bull ant bites, and summer was coming, and I didn't really want to work or in all that heat with all those snakes. I applied for a job at Sutherland Shire Council and got it. Yay! I did a lot of job applications before I got that job. So it was quite a relief at the time. So this is in around, the end of 2021. Now, that was a really interesting time to start at Sutherland Council. Council had just decided that they were going to put together a climate strategy, which for them meant an emissions reductions plan. They were going, as an organization, take stock of how much carbon they were emitting and set a target to become a net zero emitter by 2030, and they needed this document to do it. Now, the thing about writing strategies a lot of the time for government is that it takes a lot of time, it's a lot of work, and probably no one's ever going to read them. However, without those strategies, you can't do anything else. So they are a really important backbone of all the other work that goes on. So the climate strategy that we've been writing, it's very close to being approved. It's only taken 2.5 years to get there. I've also worked on our tree and bushland strategy, which has been approved. And we've got 2 others in the mix at the moment, a resilience strategy and a biodiversity strategy. So that's all about, how we as a council are going to support these different facets of the environment in the local area. What was really interesting, though, about starting at Sutherland Shire at that time, where my job was newly created, no one had done it before. So a lot of the time you start a job and someone else has already been doing it, right? They say, oh, you've got to do A, B, and C. This is what's expected of you, da, 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 da. In this job, there was none of that. Aside from working on this strategy, no one really knew what I was supposed to be doing. And I didn't actually know what I was supposed to be doing because, hey, I had, I finished my master's and I'd been walking around the bush for 7 months. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. So there was a bit of time where I was, twiddled my thumbs for a bit while I worked it out. But that kind of gave me the space. And I actually had quite a supportive manager who did give me the space to kind of work out, okay, what am I passionate about, or what do I want to work on, or how can my talents contribute to those strategies and those aims? And very quickly, it's become apparent that kind of that communication, education, and engagement side was really what appealed to me more. Sorry, I'm boring you, Taylor. It's fine. He's heard me talk enough anyway, it's fine. So some of the projects that we started out on was this project here, this building on the, I always mix up my left and right-hand side. So that's a fishing club at Tarrant Point. Does anyone live in Sutherland Shire, or is anyone familiar with Sutherland Shire? I should have probably asked that to start. Oh, well, it's fine. It's the most southern part of Sydney, of the metro area. So if you keep going south past Kogarah, you'll get to Sutherland, Cronulla Beach, that sort of area. So that's a fishing club within our local government area. And actually, that building used to be a church and was somewhere completely different. And back in the 60s, they were building a new church and they actually donated the entire building. So it got taken apart and moved to its current location and rebuilt as a fishing club. And what's interesting about it is that there were power lines connecting that building to the grid. And those power lines were super old. No one knew how long they'd been there for. There weren't really that great records. And when council was like, okay, we're going to pull them down and put up some new ones, they realized this is actually not like owned land that these power lines are on. So they kind of did a cost benefit analysis and realized that it was going to cost way more money to buy that strip of land and put in brand new power lines, double the cost probably, than it was to actually just install solar panels, batteries, and energy efficiencies in that building. So it kind of flew under the radar that this was happening. A colleague of mine happened to mention that it was happening, and I was like, hold on, we need to talk about this. This is something that we need to let the community know is happening as a case study, or just get the word out there that, you know, this is actually something possible, that we do have these off-grid buildings. So for me, it's been really interesting knowing that these sorts of projects have been happening and flying under the radar. People can't do the same thing in their own areas if they don't know what's happening somewhere else. So it's always good to photograph and talk about what you're doing and show others, because then, you know, other organizations, other individuals know it's achievable. One of the other projects we worked on in the energy kind of space was, we were one of the last, Heathcote High was one of the last schools in the Solar My School program. That was actually a council program started by Woollahra, Randwick and Waverley councils in assisting schools get solar installations on their roofs. It ran for about 10 years, fantastic program. Because schools use a lot of energy and they actually use it during the day, whereas most houses use their energy at night. So it was an obvious fit to get schools on board with that. That program's since ended last year, 2024, and it's now been taken forward by the Department of Education, but it was pretty cool to get that in the community. And that's one of the projects that's taking the aim of that climate strategy forward, even before it's been finalized. Another project that I've been working on is community microforests. So as Taylor and Tamer said, you know, when you feel a bit of passion for a project, tree planting is something that I've always been interested in. So I was lucky enough to be able to take this project forward, where we explored the idea of microforests or tiny forests. The idea is that you plant trees really closely together, and they grow quite quickly to compete for light. They suck up carbon, they help mitigate the urban heat island effect, they become little biodiversity hotspots in the space that they're in. So they're pretty cool things to do. We planted out 3 sites as a part of National Tree Day last year across our local government area. And each site, we had a different community group involved. So the one in the picture here is a local kindergarten in Miranda. We did another one with a primary school and another with our local Beekeepers Association, which, don't tell them I said this, but they're basically a seniors organization, because I don't think there's anyone under 50 in that club. But really cool to get, you know, 3 different demographics doing one of these projects. And with these projects, about 50% of the outcome is the environmental outcome. It's getting those trees in the ground and that sort of thing. The other 50% is providing the experience to the people who are there on the day. A lot of these kids hadn't planted a tree before that day. So how are kids going to, you know, how will they connect with nature if they've never had that experience. You know, we started off the icebreaker today with talking about that connection to nature. Doing a project like this helps facilitate that. It also helps, you know, in that photo there, we've got different staff members from council who helped out on the day. They were actually from across council, from areas that didn't normally work with each other. So you've got these kids working together with some parents came along, you've got different council members, they're having conversations, they're getting to know each other. It's community building, it's creating that experience. That's the other 50% that you want from this kind of project outcome. Also been able to do a lot more engagement. So internally, some things like World Environment Day, tree walks and talks, bike maintenance workshops. I stupidly forgot to include this photo from World Environment this year where I put together an outdoor eco lodge in front of council. So if you go on my LinkedIn, you'll be able to find it. I basically dressed up in a safari suit and was doing environment-based questions for staff passing by, which sounds really silly when I describe it, but the way that people interact with you when you're in that kind of scenario and looking that way and acting that way and talking to them about things like climate change, which is a very heavy topic, they will actually talk about it, you know. So it's really important to be able to find these fun ways to have these discussions about these really important topics. Also going back to passions, I was able to draw on my undergrad by going to a local German language school and talking to them about climate change resilience in German and doing activities with them, which was kind of a nice full circle. And I'm going to speed through this a little bit because I've been given the time. Some other things that we've done to get the community out and engage with citizen science is a big summer beetle hunt at one of our not so great parks. It's actually reserved for a highway, but we found over 40 species of insects there within an hour and a half and microbats and recorded all of those on iNaturalist, which was pretty cool and engaging for the people who came along. And also for the last 3 years, we've been running a Youth Week Climate and Biodiversity Forum at Cronulla. So the first year, we probably had 32 students come up. This year, we had 65. And one of the good outcomes from that was that all the students collaborated to create this youth statement on the climate crisis, which we'll be including in our draft climate strategy. And we're also arranging for the students to meet with their local federal MPs to deliver to that statement in person to them. I thought it was really important that when you get kids along to a day where you teach them about leadership and get engaging speakers and all this stuff along, it's really great, but you've got to capture some of that energy and do something with it. And so giving them this statement and ownership of that and taking it forward and having it used somewhere is really key. Also did a sports field heat imaging project. Basically, we've got a sports fields complex, which is some of them are natural turf, some of them are astroturf. And one of the local sports clubs reported that it was way too hot to play on. So got out 3 times a day for 1 day a week for 8 weeks to measure how hot these sports fields were getting, the astroturf versus the natural turf. And in some cases, there was 15 to 20 degrees difference, which is really important because that's also a bushfire evacuation zone. So when you've got a community in an emergency situation, sending them to a place that's potentially 20 degrees warmer than it should be is not a great idea. And last slide, sorry, I had to speed through that a little bit. Yeah, continuing on with all the good work and the links with UNSW. So I don't know if any of you guys know Nara. She was an MEM student. She came and worked with us for a couple of weeks on some projects in our unit. And yeah, next thing will be Canopy Fest on the 26th of July, a 1-day festival of talks about trees. I encourage you all to check it out and come along. It's all free. We'd love to see some of your faces there. Sorry. That's it from me.
Thank you.
Sorry, I always talk too much.
Thank you so much, Mitchell. Now we'll move on to our third and final panelist, who is the most recent graduate of the MEM program. He is a climate services consultant with an experience in environmental management and audit assurance. He is also the mastermind behind the award-winning UNSW Bush Tucker Trail project, which incorporates traditional Aboriginal knowledge with food ecology. So please welcome Anil Babu.
Thank you, Fosia, and thank you, Audie, for inviting me. I don't have a slide prepared. I thought it'll be nice to just have a conversation. First of all, thank you to the other two panelists. That was amazing, really inspiring stuff. And yeah, a little bit about myself. I moved to Sydney 2 years ago. And prior to coming to Sydney, I was working as an auditor. And one day I decided to make a huge career change decision. And I was always really passionate about working in the field of environment or anything that's related to biodiversity. But I didn't really know like where to start or what to do. And I didn't even know there was career opportunities in this field. And that's when I realized about, I did some research and I came to know about MEM, and that's how I decided to come to Australia. And I would say it's the best decision I've ever made in my life. It has completely changed my life, hopefully for the best. But over the past 2 years, being an MEM student has been really different for me. And I would say that because I come from a finance background. It's not actually science background, I'm sorry, but like it's a finance background. And when you are in business school, it's always talking about money and you know how everything is related to that shareholder value or anything, everything is like measured in terms of monetary values, right? So when I started MEM, like in the first class, it's talking about philosophy, it's talking about childhood. And I was like, what the hell is happening? Like what are you talking about? Like talk about like something tangible. And I didn't really understand like what's happening like in the first 2 weeks of MEM. And then slowly it hit me, like as it progressed through the readings and all the other classes, it really, you know, it really redefines like how you think. And I think that's the biggest takeaway that I have from MEM. So I only realized that once I did elective course in the business school. And that was about ESG reporting and climate change and sustainability reporting stuff. And in that, I was, that's when it really like made me understand why MEM is important, because the whole all business students, they didn't really care about the environment. So the professor asked to the in one of the classes, she asked, okay, why do we need sustainability reporting, or why do we need to you know, like show the GHG emissions, or why do we need to account for that? And one of the students actually said, yeah, so that once we do all those things, it looks good on our profile, looks good for the company, and more investors will invest in your company, and that way we make more money. And that's exactly when you realize that's the reason why we do MEM. It's to really open your mind to things that are different and really having a broader understanding of what's really happening out there. So in terms of like for today's topic, so I think like we have both talking about research and also like the career navigation aspect to it. I've done both. So I would start off how my journey was and how I reached where I am. So one of the things, so when I came to Sydney, when I started doing MEM, I had no background in sustainability. I had zero background in sustainability, and I was really overwhelmed by where do I start? How do I get a career? How do I make money out of it? How do I live my life? And I had to start somewhere small. So what really worked for me was applying for competitions. I would apply to any competition that has something to do with sustainability or something that would like add value. Not because I knew anything about it, but I thought it would be a great learning opportunity. And that's exactly what worked well for me. I so far I've in the 2 years of MEM, I've participated in 3 or 4 competitions, and somehow I was able to win all of it. And that really made like a big difference when it came to my career, or like even my career journey, or even the way I was studying MEM. Um, so and also like I did a couple of internships while I was at uni. It was through the WIL program. I think that's where Nara came to. Is that through the MEM program, or was it a separate? Yeah, so that I did a similar project with City of Sydney, and that was also really helpful in terms of building your CV, building your experience, especially if you have like no base in sustainability before. So that really worked well for me as well, when you go for job interviews and stuff like that. On the other hand, what really made my journey at MEM or UNSW really special is one passion project I led. And that came out of nowhere. And I think like I was not here when Tema was describing about the curiosity and following your curiosity. But I think I can relate to that because that's exactly something that really changed everything for me. So how many of you have done a course with Dan Robinson? You know Dan Robinson, right? No? Okay, so he's a really cool professor. And if you haven't done any courses yet, I would highly recommend doing one course with him. So after one of the classes, as Taylor mentioned earlier, like, it's building that rapport with the professors. So after one class, I went to Dan and I told him, I have a lot of free time and I am really passionate about doing something, but I don't know where to start. And then we had like a good chat. And then after a couple of chats, he told me that there was this one project that he always wanted to do, but he never had time, or it was not going really well. And he asked me if I wanted to take up that initiative and do something about it. So essentially, what it was called the Bush Tucker Trail. I'm sure you must have noticed like a couple of signboards around like the campus for trees and like a little bit information about the trees and other things on the campus. So that was created back in the early 2000s, and it was called the Green Trail, where they basically mapped out the some really nice indigenous and native plants and trees on campus, and provided some information on signboards around the campus. So the problem was, after early 2000s, it was not maintained well. It was not even, it was not maintained well. The information, it was a bit colonial. It didn't really have any indigenous representation on it, even though they were all native plants. So Dan said that there was a lot of research that was done on that. And it is high time that we have to reinvent the Bush Tucker Trail. So it was not even called the Bush Tucker Trail, it was called the Green Trail. And with a plan to really regenerate the native biodiversity on campus through the Bush Tucker Trail. And it was a very hard program because we have to start somewhere, right? Where do you go to, like, all we wanted to do was like plant some trees, plant some native plants, and increase biodiversity. But how do we do that? It is very difficult. We went to the estate management. We tried to set up many meetings with them, but they were not really happy to be involved, or they didn't really want to do it. But we kept pushing for it. And luckily, I was able to meet someone from the senior management, and I pitched this idea of this Bush Tucker Trail. And this person was really happy about the project plan that we had created. And she basically approved the project, or she basically gave the funding to go ahead with the project. And once it got like a little bit of funding, we partnered with Indigigrow, which is a native, 100% Aboriginal-owned native nursery that's based in La Perouse. We saw some plants from them. We collaborated with a couple of students and staff from UNSW to do the planting in 3 stages. And that was a really nice project, and it gained a lot of traction. So at that point, I didn't know what was it going to be. It was just something that I had some time. I wanted to do something about it, and I wanted to make a difference. So we collaborated with a lot of people. A lot of students came together, and that gained a lot of traction. A lot of people within the different faculties, different researchers, like a lot of people came to know about this project because there was a lot of media attention to it. And I was invited to participate in another competition that was held by the World Health Organization in Seoul on the project on the topic of sustainable cities and healthy cities. So one of the researchers like from Cities Institute of UNSW reached out to us and asked if we can go to Seoul and present our idea as part of the competition. And we were really happy to do it. So what we did was we really created like a bigger plan. We created like 3 stages to the whole project. And we wanted to essentially make our UNSW campus into patches of microforests, as you mentioned. So that it acts as a biodiversity corridor within the campus. And the idea that we projected was if we can do that within an institution like UNSW, that can be replicated like in a hospital or in a residential building and so on. So that way we create a corridor within the urban spaces for nature to really thrive. And that idea was very well received back in Seoul during the competition, and we won the first prize for that competition. And once that happened, that came up in a lot of the news and everything like within university channels. And a lot of people, a lot of faculties, a lot of faculty of the science, faculty of food and nutrition, a lot of different faculties reached out to us asking about more details about the trail and what are the type of plants, and it kind of blew up. And ever since then, we have been working on together to create this at a much larger scale. So the only planting that we did was just 265 plants around the campus of around 26, 28 different varieties, but that was not enough. So we created like this huge like 5-year, 3-year plan to actually revamp it and make it do it at a much larger scale. And even though like I have graduated, I've been like working really closely with the estate management to make that really happen. And I'm happy to say that like within the last 2 months, we had received like $500,000 grant to actually make that happen. So that's one thing that came out of MEM and I was able to use this experience to talk about in my job interviews and talk about in any other social events and events like this. And it really gives me that, it really makes me happy, like sharing this small thing that just started off as nothing, but it rolled on to become something bigger than what was expected. The reason why I was able to spend a lot of time was because Dan, the professor, suggested me to do this as part of my research so that I wouldn't be, because as you know, it's really hard to focus on doing the readings and doing the essays and surviving like in Sydney, which is a very expensive city. You had to also work to get some money. So it was really hard to manage time. So Dan suggested me to do this as part of my research. And I was able to do that very happily because it was my project. I knew everything about it. It was all about making that really, really good in terms of like in academic research, backing it with a lot of research. So I really enjoyed the process of doing that research program. And yeah, that's how I did both research and this project side by side. And it didn't really feel like I was putting a lot of effort because half of the work was already done. So in terms of, I didn't really choose the project. It just like came to me like out of nowhere. And if you're planning to do research, I would really suggest you to think about something that you're really passionate about. So it doesn't really feel like a lot of work. That's one thing. And yeah, and after that, in terms of a career, I always wanted to get into sustainability consulting, only because my background is in finance and I was working as an auditor. And I'm good with numbers, and that's what I thought would be better for me in terms of combining my sustainability knowledge and also my background. So I had already, when I was in year 1, I had already made a plan on how to get into that. So one of the things that I did was probably looking at the job postings a year ago before I applied. And I looked at what are the skills that's already mentioned within the job description and seeing the gaps where I am at and trying to finding ways to fill those gaps by doing extra work or taking extra electives, and that would fill those gaps. And that's how I did the electives with the business school in terms of ESG reporting and sustainability reporting. And that was really integral when it came to my interviews and everything, because that's something that I even do right now at the work that I'm doing. Yeah, so that's been my journey so far. And if you have any questions, please do ask me. I'll be happy to answer them. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil. Right. Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for sticking with us. We have a short panel discussion first and before our short break. So it's also a Q&A, so you guys can voice out your questions to the panelists. And yeah, we'll welcome them onto the stage.
Get started. Thank you.
Make space for one more shot. Thank you. All right, thank you. Thank you so much for your experience in your career and your research projects. So I just have a few questions, and feel free to be informal and just grab the mic from one another, and like, you guys are free to share whatever you want. All right, so the first question, I just would like to ask you, could you tell us a little bit about your upbringing and how that made you connected to the environment or this field? And was there a turning point in your life that made you pursue this path?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to start if that's all right. So upbringing was a bit strange. When I was 3, my dad's work took him over to Malaysia. And so I actually spent quite a bit of time over in KL and then actually over near Hong Kong in the end as well. So eventually came back to Sydney when I was about 10 years old, having grown up in international schools mostly, which was a very strange kind of reverse culture shock coming back to Australia. When we landed back in Australia, having lived in very kind of like isolated, weird, like suburban lives in these compounds, very disassociated from nature, really. We then ended up in the Blue Mountains, which was the exact opposite of that, where literally the national park was in my backyard, and we'd just go wandering around as kids, and there's creeks and caves and trees and literally koalas and kangaroos everywhere. It was just like, it was so strange, but also, yeah, I think that was really quite integral to grounding my relationship with quote unquote nature. And then eventually now where I live in Coogee, I still actually still see that connection with nature, even in such an urban space. Having the coast there is just a constant reminder, literally seeing whales, all of that kind of stuff is quite beautiful.
Thank you. For me, as I mentioned in the talk, I grew up on the edge of Sydney in a kind of a semi-rural area. So quite lucky in that regard that nature was around me and I was able to connect with it that way. But also in terms of like early influences, like having grandparents who gardened a lot and that sort of thing, who grew vegetables or flowers and that sort of thing, connecting through doing that work with them, or my dad, kind of brought that, that experience brought that interest to me. And I think as well, I mentioned how at the end of high school, I was like, oh, should I do this or that? I think one of the things that brought me back to the environmental space was, traveling and seeing how humans across the world were interacting with the environment in different ways. And it's been a privilege to have the opportunity to travel. But, seeing how people interact with environment and sustainability in Germany versus the Netherlands versus Australia versus Indonesia. And, that I had experiences in different places where it really turned my mind to how we as a species are interacting with our planet, and using that as a motivation to project me into this career, I suppose. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, you forgot. Yeah.
So for me, I grew up in Kerala, which is in South India. And luckily, I was able to live with my grandparents and my parents, and we had a lot of land. And my grandmother and my dad was really into growing food on a backyard. And that has been, I think, like, so like when I was like really small, my grandmother would ask me to go and water the plants. And I think that had made like a big impact on me, which I didn't know up until like probably like very recent. Just like certain things about when you're starting to water plants, right? It's as simple as watering, like even like flowering plants. Like when you see that buds turning into like a flower, and you see all these things. And I feel like that was one of the main reasons why I was always like so connected with nature, and I really appreciated nature. In terms of the turning point, I would say back in 2019, Kerala was hit with massive floods. And I think that was the biggest flood that was ever recorded in Kerala, like probably like in 120 years. And a lot of people lost their lives, a lot of people lost their houses. And even there was water inside my house until like knee deep. And when climate change is at your doorsteps, and that really changes how you think about different things in life. And and at that point, like not many people even knew it was because of climate change, because they thought like it's flood, it's a natural weather event. But it was not. Kerala has undergone like a very huge difference in terms of the temperatures. So and it's happening like in real life, and not many people knew that. And that was probably the point I realized there should be like some changes. I should probably do, if I'm like doing a career, like if I'm working on something, probably if I work on something that's related to it and make at least like one small difference, that'd be better. So I think that's how it relates for me.
Thank you guys for sharing that. I see myself in, I think, all of your stories. I also grew up in Malaysia, so shout out KL. And also had family or parents who were interested in this kind of thing, and they kind of instilled these values into us that hey, we should take care of where we live. Yeah, no littering, no destroying property or whatever it is. Yeah, so yeah. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions for these panelists? I know that not a lot of them visit the campus quite often anymore, right? I know Anil is working, but except for Taylor, yeah. So this is the best opportunity for you guys to ask them any questions. Yeah.
Hi, first of all, thank you so much for the wonderful presentations. I'm pursuing the Master of Engineering Science, Master of Commerce double degree program at UNSW. So I'm specializing in sustainability business. And I actually come from a chemical engineering background, and I've sort of worked in the industry in pharmaceutical, energy, chemicals. So one of the things that I would be interested in understanding is in your sort of day-to-day roles at your organizations working in sustainability related fields, what sorts of skills do you feel are most important, both in terms of technical and soft skills, both in terms of skills and competencies you're using, and sort of what you feel are important in terms of other people working in those areas?
Great question.
We'll start with Taylor.
Yeah. Yeah, great question. I soft skills is probably where my mind goes to first. I think hard skills, and that's actually something that I was going to mention in the methodology thing, is it'd be very foolish, I think, if during a PhD or even a master's research to learn new skills whilst collecting your data or something, or analyzing your data. That would be really foolish in my mind. Is like, train yourself up, be prepared to do whatever it is you're doing. If you get the opportunity to do a GIS course at any point in time, like that is probably one of the, like, yeah, like it is such a great hard skill to walk out of a university campus with, and something that I know that people in my world really value. We're always looking for applications to use GIS in some capacity. like probably not stats or anything like that. I think like, you can outsource that if you need that. Soft skills, I guess maybe in a cliche sense, probably would say creativity, lateral thinking, like really thinking outside of the box is where you will find, like, that's what people want. That's what employees are seeking, is like, especially now with AI, like you can get like fine answers, really, you can get adequate, but that's not what employers are hiring and paying you for, is adequate. They want that kind of bold, ambitious, brave response to think outside of the box and say, hey, there was this thing that I remember seeing when I was a kid. How about we bring that into this context here that is so outlandish and so radical that no one would have ever thought to have done that before? And then you're like, that's groundbreaking, and that's what's going to make us as an organization or us as an institution stand out amongst the crowd, and that's what is employable, really.
Yeah, really good question. I think from my perspective, I quit doing mathematics when I was in year 10. Like, I was never a numbers kind of hard skill sort of person in that sense. But one thing I've seen in the last couple of years is if you cannot collaborate, you're not going to go anywhere. You're not going to achieve what you need to achieve. And especially in the sustainability field, where, once again, I'm coming from that kind of government perspective, maybe, but there's so much collaboration that needs to happen. One of the things about my role was that I didn't have a budget. So all of the projects I talked about in my presentation, I did that with $0. And I made them happen because I collaborated. I built personal relationships with other units in my organization. So none of that happened, without collaboration. And I've seen very strongly when people are not really sure how to work with others, like they don't get very far. So I think it's such a key thing to know how to cooperate. And it sounds really simple, right? But it's not always as simple as you think. And I would say pay particular attention to that because, yeah, in this field, you're not working in a silo. You will always need to go to other parties for information, for funding, for support, in all different ways. So yeah, knowing how to build those personal relationships, those connections, and that genuine collaboration, not just slap a box ticking exercise onto whatever project it is you're doing. If you can master genuine collaboration with people around you, you're going to go really, really far, and people will see that, respect that, and want to work with you.
Yeah, 100%. Like that's one of the most important skills that you need to master, and there's no better place than a university to actually try that out. It starts with a group project at like a very small level, but always trying to build that connection, building that collaboration is one of the most important thing that you can learn in a university space and abroad, in other senses as well. To add to that, I would also say like one of the best places to do that is also networking events. Uh, find what you're passionate about and look for areas or like panel events like this. Go to those events and try to see what they're talking about. That's the best way to stay relevant on the topics that you want to be in. So I used to go to like at least like one panel event like a month when I was in uni. And that really helped because you meet a lot of people. You keep showing your face. Once you keep showing your face, you become familiar, you become visible. And when you reach out to help or when you reach out to get some genuine recommendations or like, just understanding what's happening, it's a great conversation starter. And then as people see you more and more often, you get to know what's happening in their field. So that has really helped me because going to many panel events, you always learn something new. At least 5% you learn something new every time. So that's a good method to start from. Other than that, as I mentioned earlier, like look for the jobs that you likely want to apply for. Look at the same job for different companies. Compare the job descriptions. See what are the key things that's common or something that's probably different. Look at that, how you can upskill on those points, and then you go forward with that. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, that was a great question. Does anyone have any more questions? Pass it here.
Thanks, guys. I guess what, in your opinion, would you think is, from our perspective, is probably the biggest challenge, or a challenge that like we wouldn't anticipate?
I guess we'll start with Anil first this time.
Yeah, biggest challenge. I think the biggest challenge is not trying or just starting. Like once you start anything, whatever that is, and then you have the momentum. And I feel like taking that first step is the hardest part. So even for me, like in any sense that wherever things have become positive for me, I was like kind of an introvert. I was not very happy with like talking to people, or I was not very active. And it was really hard for me to be myself out there and make that first move. But so even like with the panel events, it was so intimidating. It was super intimidating for me to attend these events because I don't know anyone there. How do I talk to a stranger? That was like the hardest part. But you start slow. You go with a friend, and then you try to like mingle with others, and over the time it gets better. So I feel like taking that first step is the hardest part in whatever sense it might be. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think putting yourself out there to make those connections, or get involved in that thing that you're really interested in, is really tricky. I think I felt very much the same way. Had felt shy or embarrassed to talk to people about something that we would actually connect over. So yeah, it can be difficult, but that's a really good thing to work on. Unforeseen challenges are gonna arise for sure. Like we mentioned, we were both studying during COVID, and that just threw all sorts of crazy curveballs at us. And this sounds maybe a little bit, up in the air, but I think it's always seeing the silver lining of what that challenge is giving you. What is the opportunity that's coming out of that? Because 9 times out of 10, there will be something to gain from whatever that challenge is. It might be that new skill. It might be, oh, I didn't get that job, but you had a great chat with the person in the office and they knew someone else who's got one going. Like, you don't know where these things are going to take you. So yeah, sounds a bit wishy-washy, but like, always stay positive. Like, it's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's I guess a thread running through there, which is like the challenges are big, but so are the opportunities that arise from them. For me personally, I would say the biggest challenge is standing out. And it's kind of like, it's a really scary and like hard to answer question. Is like, well, how do I stand out? And it's like, well, the thing is, everyone in this room has a unique story. Everyone has a unique worldview. Everyone has something to offer that is uniquely them. I think the thing that holds people back is comparing themselves to other people and saying, if I should look like this by the time I graduate, or I should have this in my kind of repertoire or skill set before I graduate. That's really dangerous, because then suddenly you start losing what makes you really special and make you unique. And you have that something special and unique, whatever it might be, whether it is like a skill, creativity, you can draw really well, you have great language capabilities, you're really good at analyzing things. There is a capability in you that you can tap into, and it just requires slowing down and reflecting on that. And also learning how to express that in a way that makes sense to the audience that you're trying to capture. And that audience might be a job interview panel. And if you can spin that answer to say, look, I haven't had experience doing that, but I have had experience doing something else that's really similar and actually is really cool and something that I'm really proud of and uniquely me, that's awesome. And that's going to make you stand out as well. So the challenge is standing out, but the opportunity is everyone has the capacity to stand out, really.
And I also want to add, like, it's all about dealing with that failures as well. So it's not like straightforward path where you apply, you get job, and like whatever that is. It's not easy. It's always dealing with things when they go wrong and how you deal with that. For example, in my case, I've applied to many jobs where I felt like I deserved it. I pretty much ticked all the requirements on the job. but I wouldn't even get a interview call and get just rejected just like that. And I used to keep thinking like, why does this happen? You know, so it's sometimes not even your fault. It's sometimes it could be a position that was filled in internally, but you keep thinking like you did something wrong. But it's also like dealing with that failure as well, and not to, you know, lose hope, but just keep trying, like, and on improving that as well. Yeah.
And on that as well, if I can add, saying yes to everything, like, I know it sounds really cliche, but like, I said yes to doing that field school trip in my 4th year because I saw a flyer in the hallway and I was like, that looks cool. And they were giving like really heavily subsidized scholarships for it. And I was like, because I was working at a restaurant, I couldn't afford to go to Uganda. Are you kidding me? So the university kind of helped to do that because I said yes to that. Having that relationship and doing that field school, saying yes to that, then meant that I had that experience to then go and do honors, and saying yes to that, doing the masters, and then someone sending me my honors supervisor saying, oh, my research colleague needs an RA for this project, saying yes to that, then led me to do that paper that led me to do the PhD that led me to, you know, like everything just kind of like, if you actually stopped and you're like, that doesn't make sense, but it's because you said yes to all of those opportunities that you kind of are where you are now, I guess, in some sense. And you can all look at that now and say, I'm here because I said yes to all these things, you know?
Thank you so much. We are going to open up just for one more question. I think Edison had one because we are conscious of time. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi. So I'm not sure if you guys have a lot of experience in internships and placements, but or if anyone here is looking for placement and internships as well, because I'm planning on looking for an internship next term. As an international student, sometimes some sites would only take residents or like Australian or New Zealand residents or citizens. So do you guys have any suggestions, or even if the place that you're working at are providing any internship opportunities?
I can take that. So as I was an international student, and I know it's super hard to get an internship or even a job being an international student, because the first thing that makes all the difference is that visa requirement, right? Are you an international student? Gone. It's like there's no point like and you. It's probably like they put that requirement at the end of the application, like they don't put it in the beginning, and you waste so much time just like filling out your application and, you know, just like wasting a lot of time. It's hard. Like I'm gonna tell you, like, honestly, it's not very easy. But the best thing I would say for you would be to look at the WIL or the internships that's offered through university. I know there's a fact that like you have to pay for it, and then, you know, it's just like counted as your degree program. But if you don't have any experience, and if you have tried all the other ways, and if you still haven't found anything, I would 100% recommend you to like start from there, right? Because once you have something that's relevant to your in your CV that you're looking forward to, it's always good to have that in your CV and take that to the next time, like when you go for like the next job interview or when you apply for that. So that's one way you could go forward with. Other than that, not all the organizations have that criteria. There are organizations who take in international students, and they're very happy to do that. So it's all about finding what you want to do and trying out to filter out. Go to LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the best place to see where things are happening. Connect with the people that or the companies that you are inclined to join. Connect with people on LinkedIn. Look at their posts, what they are up to. Try to set up coffee catch-ups. Coffee catch-ups are a great way to meet new people, and if they have time. So if you message 10 people on LinkedIn, maybe one person will tell you, okay, let's catch up for coffee. So it's also again like dealing with that as well. And other than that, also like going to panel events, going to any other networking events and being visible. That's a great way to understand what's happening in those companies as well. Yeah. And also one more thing, like everything starts a year in advance. Like if you're looking for graduate programs and stuff, don't wait until the last moment to look for jobs. Start from a year before that. So it's so like, for example, like for the jobs that starting in like Feb 2026, the applications have already closed. It's not longer available for certain companies. There are might be other companies, but it's always like looking looking at things way in advance. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Like the networking is very important. And being mindful of time and being prepared for that. For example, I somebody reached out to me saying, "Oh, could I come and study, do a placement with you at council for summer?" No one's working during summer. Like you got to be mindful of these things that people will go on leave for about a month. There's no one there to actually show you those things. So I think also, yeah, thinking ahead of when you want to do it and for how long you want to do it is really important. Will help you make decisions on where to ask and where to go. I had something else and I totally forgot it. Oh, it was probably really good. It'll come back to me at like 2 a.m. Oh, well, I'm going to hand it over to Taylor.
So at Yerrabingin, we're a private design practice, Aboriginal owned, and we do a lot of working with country stuff. So we work with landscape architects and urban designers, fields that conventionally the MEM wouldn't really be associated with. Like there's the built environment and then there's MEM stuff really. All this to say, like, think about other, I guess, spaces where you really maybe they're a bit kind of unconventional for environmental management, students to be working within, and be thinking like maybe they have an opportunity that, you just send those emails. I got my job through Instagram, like literally just because I followed it and then they posted up on a story and I was like, that looks cool. And then obviously like followed through all the links and everything, but like, it's just about immersing yourself in all of those opportunities. Yes, LinkedIn, yes, Instagram, like just immersing yourself in those opportunities so that they actually are in front of your face, because so many times things will just pass by. In terms of the technicalities of international students, I think if you can get over that hurdle of doing something, a formal application where there is literally a box that says yes or no, and you can actually have those coffee conversations, then you can kind of be like, look, there's an official technical thing that says the internship process means this, but you seem like a really great person and you have a lot to offer. Yes, we'll make something work. What do you have to offer? Let's figure that out, So there's kind of like formal and informal internships, I guess, in some sense. But the WIL stuff, the work integrated learning, definitely have a think about that as well.
And I guess another thing, sorry, in the lead up to an internship is also considering that, volunteering or those smaller projects. Like we've been saying, everything's kind of a stepping stone. For me, I kind of started off doing volunteering at my local bush care with the local council. So, every 2 weeks going down to a site and doing that work. And then I use that experience to apply for the next thing, gives you more experience. Oh, now there's a paid opportunity. I've got those 2 sets of experience to do that similar activity as a job or internship or something else. So, collecting those bits of experience along the way for the next bit of experience will also help you in the long run. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. So if any of the students want to reach out to you, can they reach out to you via LinkedIn? Yeah, all right.
Absolutely.
Sounds good. I guess you can just search up their name and it should show up. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. We are going to take a group picture. So we're just gonna need you guys to like move your seats around and then like go over there. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, but before that, we're just gonna do a little shameless promotion of the Environmental Management Club. So we are recruiting because we are about to retire. Bye bye. So we just want to get ahead of the curve and just inform you guys that next term we are going to be recruiting for members. Like we have the president position open, treasurer, ARC delegate, grievance officer, and so on. So yeah, we definitely need you guys. And it is open to those who are not even studying MEM. Yeah. So yeah, we hope to see some applications in. And yeah, thank you so much to the panelists. I think it was an amazing discussion and we learned a lot from you guys. And if anyone just took away one thing, I think that would be a huge success. So Thank you so much for your time and your words today. Yeah, we really appreciate it. So we are going to take a picture. So Audi is going to hold the, oh, sorry. Yeah, you're just going to keep it down. Yeah, and you guys can stay seated where you are, but Himanshu, could you like move in, please? Thank you. Take a picture of it. Hopefully I can do it.
You press the wrong button, it's going to explode.
The red one, right?
No, it's it was the wrong one.
This one.
Yes, that one. The red one is for explosion. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That is a wrap for the event, but we do have a snack session as we promised. So that will be outside to grab your drinks or snacks and even the panelists. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
And if you want, we have a feedback form here. You can scan the QR code while you eat, while you're snacking, and give us any feedback if you want to have any this kind of event in the futures, or if you have any feedback to us regarding this event. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Yeah. Do you want to sit? Yeah. So here we are. So you can just check on.